What's up? My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, martial artist, father, surfer, retired MMA fighter, and Kajukembo instructor. And you're watching or listening to the SGWA podcast, broadcasted from Kasai City, Japan. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for checking out Social Jello with Angelo. Today I interview Claro Austria. He is a Kajukembo practitioner, and he shares his Kajukembo journey and his martial arts journey. A lot of great stuff in this episode. Stay tuned for the wrap-up to learn how you can support the show. And let's get this thing on the road. All right. Well, Claro Austria, thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I guess the way I always get things started, I always mention, and I mentioned it off camera, I'll mention it on camera. I'm not big on rank, mostly because I'm really bad at remembering stuff. So because of my own memory issues, got hit in the head one too many times. So but if you don't mind sharing with everyone, you are a Kajukembo practitioner, is that correct?
I am.
Okay, cool.
I started in the early 80s and I received my black belt from Sifu Faircloth, who is now Professor Terry Faircloth, an 8th degree black belt. And I was with Sifu for quite a while. I ran the school with him as well, and before I moved on to go to college. But I continued training in Aikido. At the time, I think it was with all that Steven Seagal movie stuff. I got into it, and Sifu was into it, so I decided to look into it. So I was in Japan teaching English, and I stayed for 2 years, got my black belt from Ryuji Sakamoto, who was actually, at the time, I didn't know, was a young master in Aikido. And he kind of showed me the ropes and, showed me I really didn't know what I thought I knew. So that I hung on to learning Aikido, but at some point I had to leave the country and move back to the States. And I kept trying to understand the Aikido art from different teachers. So I searched and searched and searched, even went all the way to Los Angeles and found Haruo Matsuoka Sensei, who was a student of Steven Seagal's, and he's in all the Steven Seagal movies in the earlier days. I was with him for 4 years, and Imaizumi Sensei here in New York for almost 7 years, I think, before I moved on. And Imaizumi Sensei is one of the original students of Ueshiba, actually. So so I was always doing Kajukembo in some ways offsite. I was also teaching a student of mine who's a black belt. I like to, things bore me very easily. So I like to when I'm interested in something, I go and check it out. I'll go to a judo school and I'll watch, see what they're doing, see if I want to hang out there for a while, or even an MMA school or BJJ school, things like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a very that's a very Kajukembo thing to do, right? We get bored easily. Like if you just, I love boxing, but if I have to do boxing 6 days a week, I just get bored. Like I want to kick something. So, one of my questions, I was going to ask you also, and again, I'm not big on rank, but what is your rank in Kajukembo?
I am currently an 8th degree black belt. Professor Faircloth promoted me just, was it 2 years ago? I'm getting cloudy. Was it the pandemic?
That's professor then, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I'm a professor as well.
All right. Yeah,
who does not want to be promoted grandmaster. That's his own business. I don't know. So I said, okay. I said, we're all gonna die soon anyway. So I think it's his way of preserving the legacy and his art moving on, so that if something did happen, I'll be able to help the other students, his students, continue to grow within the art.
Well, you hit a lot of points, like so quickly. I have so many questions now. So I guess let's go back. Let's go back to the 80s. Let's go there. So you said you started doing Kajukembo in the 80s.
Yeah.
And where did you start doing Kajukembo in the 80s? Where were you at that point?
I was in Federal Way, Washington, which is in between Seattle and Tacoma.
Okay. Okay.
Just drive by, it's there someplace. And I've always wanted to do martial arts, watching Bruce Lee movies, 1970s, things like that. I got into a lot of fights when I was in school. I always got picked on. So I really, really wanted to learn martial arts, and I didn't know how to go about it. So we even went to downtown Seattle one time. We ran into a Hungar school, where they were selling the weapons and whatnot. I don't know if you've ever been to Seattle. And my father was like bragging. He says, "Oh yeah, he can do nunchucks," but I couldn't. And we decided not to go there because it was too far from where we lived. And then I joined wrestling in 7th grade because I really needed, I was like very physical. I wanted to move around. But then after that season, it was during the summer that I had discovered Sifu Faircloth School in some basement somewhere in Federal Way.
Okay.
And I started there, and I thought, cool, I can finally learn martial arts here. And it was at that time it's not very expensive. It was kind of cheap, and I had a paper route, so I paid my Sifu with dollar bills, and he still thinks that's kind of funny, but that's how I started.
Yeah.
And I ended up practicing with him, and he was very interested in entering the tournament circuit in forms. It was because the school was very small, and he was really teaching there weren't any kids at all. Like my brother and I were probably the youngest, and maybe one other guy. So we were learning with like adults.
And how old were you?
I was about 14, 15.
14, 15. All right. So you said you did wrestling first, though.
I did wrestling first.
Wow. And a lot of people, I mean, I know, like, you look at the traditional martial arts mindset, I think it's changed a lot recently. But
Yeah.
I would argue now that wrestling is a martial art. So you can, yeah, it is. I would argue that. I know some traditionalists would say differently, and no offense to traditionalists, but
if you ever listen to Sifu Aldakauskas talk about it in 1980s, he created a video where he talks about the 6 ranges or 7 ranges of fighting. Grappling is the closest range.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you let the guy in too close.
Yeah, exactly. So,
you can't argue about it. You just got to start hitting him or start wrestling or something. Throw him.
And that it's funny that you mentioned that. And here I go again with the titles. We're gonna say here. Actually, I looked this one up because I knew this. I knew that Al DeCascos was gonna come up. Grandmaster.
The great
senior.
We call him Sifu.
Okay. I can't. I don't know him, so I just gotta go with senior. I'm gonna go with senior grandmaster on this one. But he mentions the ranges of combat. For those people that listen to this that come from MMA and BJJ, that this is not unfamiliar to those folks either. This is the same thing that the Gracies were talking about in their work as well as the ranges of combat, and particularly I think it was Royce Gracie that goes into and really dives into the ranges of combat and more into the MMA side of that. So there's links right there. So you started with wrestling, and you were the only teenager in the class. So how was that? You're in there with a bunch of adults. How did that?
There were like three of us, my brother and some other guy. I don't know. It was intimidating, but I really wanted to learn. I wasn't really scared of like people's heights because I did get into fights when I was in school, unfortunately. So I just wanted to learn. At Sifu, I think at the time I didn't even speak as much English as I do now. Sifu used to like make fun of me. Goes, "Well, I want to learn kung fu. You know, he still says that with an accent. I was like, yeah, whatever. But when he taught at that time, it was very traditional. It was like the way he was taught by Sifu Joseph Clark. You know, you stand in front of the mirror and you do your first basics. You know, and if you get that down, you'll come back and you and you go with the next basics. He'll show you the next basics, and you got that down. You know, the upward block, and then you got that down, the stances, and then the kicks, and then a form. You know, and then you go to the street sets. That's how we taught at that time. It was very, very traditional. You know, long horse stances, walk, and the physicality. It was you had to do all the physicality. You know, all the hundreds of push-ups, the sit-ups, the horse, yeah, whatever, hitting the bags. They have this one exercise because I think Joseph Clark was into Jeet Kune Do and boxing as well. So you stand in the corner and you got these guys with gloves and they would hit you, you know, and you'd have to like do this and you had to block, cover your center, things like that. It was tough training. But I was kind of I wasn't intimidated because I took wrestling, and wrestling was tough. You know, you had to do lines. You had to climb a rope that was like, I don't know, 10, 20 feet high and come down before you even begin wrestling. You know what I mean? You had to do all these physical exercises that were very, very rough. So I was kind of used to it, and my body like craved it, wanted it after a while. So I always had to go to class. I got so much into it that I decided to quit wrestling. My wrestling coach tried to like get me back, and I was like, I got so busy because Sifu was getting us involved in tournament forms, and we were doing very well. After a while, we were placing first, second, or third. We never, you know, never got anything less than first, second, or third. So I just kept going with that. Yeah. And then I liked the self-defense because I got into fights. They kept picking on me, you know, and I was like, what am I going to do? I was scared, you know? So I was like, I got to learn this stuff. What is this? You know, how do I hit this? How do I do that? You know, the guy's coming at me this way. He's putting me in a headlock. Oh my God, you know, I'm going to die, you know, Sifu, teach me how to get out of here, out of this situation and stuff like that. So it was, you know, Kajukembo was real. It wasn't like sports or anything like that.
And how did you feel? Because some wrestlers, when they get into striking martial arts, they're terrified to get hit. I have had, I don't know how many MMA wrestlers and grapplers that tell me, I want to do MMA, and you do MMA, you know, you teach Kajukembo, you do some MMA stuff. Can I jump in? And one of the first things that challenges that grapplers face is the idea of getting hit.
Yeah.
How
actually, I understand it. It's scary. I know the first time I did Aikido, my teacher was into throwing. So he was about to throw me. He goes, say, stop. How do I fall? You know, because he was the 360 over his shoulders, over his head. You know, I was like, I've never been thrown that high in Kajukembo. I was like, what's going to happen to me? You know, he goes, Claro, you're so funny. You put your arm under here. And you I was like, oh, okay. You know, and after a while, he throws you 10 more times and you're not scared anymore. You know, vice versa. If you've never experienced hitting, it's scary. You know, the first time I taught my student who's now a black belt, you know, he was scared. I was just like, oh, yeah, you get used to it. So I had to get him used to like being punched at, then being kicked at, then being kneed and elbowed at, right? He got so good, he starts to headbutt me. I was like, well, we'll get to the headbutting later. Yeah. Because that really hurts if you get hit in the nose. So after that, we got into joint locking, which I'm not into it anymore as much. But then we got into throwing. And then that's another thing that he had to get over, you know, the fear of being thrown, like I just mentioned to you. You know what I mean? You have to learn how to fall. First time I was throwing him around, it wasn't like an Aikido class where it was like very pretty, people fall very pretty. You know, he was like going all over the place, hitting the mirrors and the windows. I thought he was going to like, you know, hurt himself like really badly. I was like, okay, I got to stop. You know, because you got to know how to fall properly to be able to save yourself. You know, you don't just throw somebody with a sacrifice throw and hope for the best. They can really hurt themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have to know how to take that fall. Even people who know how to do it, and if you catch them off guard, you know, they get really pissed off at you when you do it right.
Yeah, I mean, even like if for as much as BJJ guys like to say that that it's a really rough sport, one of the things that they don't like to do is hard tatewaza. They don't like to do that. A lot of times you look at the most of the injuries. You'd think most of the injuries come from the submissions. Most of the injuries come from the tatewaza. You know, you're trying to get the guy down, and they fall wrong, and they stick their arm out in a strange position, or they get caught up in the suit, and that's where the dislocated shoulders and all that stuff comes from.
Martial arts together, two black belts. Like a friend of mine who's a colleague of mine, we went head to head one time, just like brief exchange, you know, bang! You know, just like that, very fast. Bang! He's like a black belt in karate, I'm black belt in Kajukembo, so we both are in that world, but we're also aikidokas. But when we exchange punches and kicks. I stubbed my, you know, we clashed and I stubbed my thumb, and I was injured for like 2 to 3 weeks. You know what I mean? It's not a joke.
Yeah, no, it's those small little injuries that you don't see coming that last the longest. I feel like it's the small ones. Like we,
you don't,
yeah, you don't think about it, right? So like Sifu John coming out of Okayama here in Japan, he got injured. And when I asked him about it, I'm like, he posted on Facebook, I had surgery. I'm like, well, he had surgery. What happened? And he's like, well, I was teaching, and I thought he was going to tell me some grand story of like, because he has guys coming in that not challenge, but he'll have people come. He has open class, so people, MMA guys, and we're in Japan, so karate, full contact guys come in. So I thought maybe he had some really crazy stories, like, oh, I was teaching one of my white belts how to leg check, how to check a leg kick, and he bought the leg kick a little low and broke my toe in 2 places. Like, oh jeez.
Oh no.
And he was down for a year. Like that really a little injury, down for a year, right? So like you never know. You never know what's gonna happen.
When you get older, you gotta like take it easy.
Yeah.
It's not like when you're 18 or 20 or 30.
No, the body doesn't bounce back the way it used to. So you were doing you quit wrestling because you were really getting into competing in Kajukembo in the forms world, in martial arts, into the traditional side of martial arts, and then you kept training, and then you said you went to college. It's a little bit of a side note, but what did you study in college?
I thought I wanted to be a business major, so I was a pre-business major, but then I started taking acting classes. And that's really, really where my passion was. And I didn't know at the time, but when I finally got the guts to do it, I started doing it, and I started getting into school plays. And at some point I decided, okay, this might be my thing. So I studied theater and got a BA in theater.
Wow,
it's kind of
cool.
scary because I really needed a job after college.
Yeah.
I don't know how many jobs you can get doing theater.
Yeah, there's not a lot of places you can just walk. And then if you decide to go a different path, you can't go into an office. You're like, well, I got this bachelor's in theater. I think I'd be good at sales.
Actually, I did get stuck working in an office after a while.
You pulled it off. So hey,
because of
don't let anyone discredit acting, right? Don't let anyone discredit it.
I needed those office jobs when I'm not acting, when I'm not getting work as an actor.
Cool.
But yeah. I mean, on a side note, I did Sifu Faircloth trained me a lot because I ran his school. And so I was kind of like Batman and Robin, we were, he taught me how to make sails. He was really into the school, grew that way. It went from a small basement and kept moving around to like, I don't know how many square footage the school was, to at least at some point on the books, it was like about 100 students, but not all of them came at the same time. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot from him. Sales, martial arts, everything. He even taught me how to drive a stick shift. So it was hard when I left. I had to move on. It was a different journey going to college, you know. I had to leave the martial arts world. I mean, at the time I knew everybody in the circuit, in the tournament circuit. We dabbled with, at the time MMA wasn't a thing, and BJJ, so we were, you know, with a lot of karate people in different styles, and also with David Bird with stick fighting, you know, with the Filipino martial arts, which is a big deal in Kajukembo, you know.
Yeah, and it's really making a huge comeback, even outside of Kajukembo, the stick fighting, the eskrima, the
Knife.
the knife, FMA. They're calling it FMA now, Filipino martial arts. The FMA is showing up all over MMA right now, not just Kajukembo. It's coming in, the JKD community. It's coming out of a lot of guys because of
I met Inosanto once.
Yeah, because of Guru Inosanto, as they're calling him, and his influence in MMA. I'm hearing a lot of other podcasts with people saying they're working with FMA now. Like FMA is like I don't know if it's going to become a popular trend for the public, but I know in the martial arts community, a lot of people are talking about that right now. So my question for you, and you kind of touched on it already, and we're going to get back into your story about your time in college and going to Japan, but how do you feel, how do you feel the training that Professor Faircloth did with you? Because you said it wasn't just martial arts, right? He kind of took you in real traditional martial arts style of not just teaching a kid that walks in how to punch, how to fight, how to kick. They start teaching you life lessons.
I was an apprentice.
Yeah. You kind of became an apprentice of a business owner, of an entrepreneur, right? Because when you run a really big school, that's what you are. You're not just a martial arts entrepreneur.
Very bad business owner, but
so how do you feel the stuff that you learned from him and the martial arts? How did that help you when you said you were going to college? It was a new world for you. You were leaving behind a whole community. But how do you feel that kind of prepared you for that?
Oh, that's a very difficult question. I mean, we can go on philosophically forever with this. But you know, a lot of the lessons that you learn in martial arts, not just the physical but the mental, and having trained for all those years as a teenager, right, to becoming a young man. I think I left when I was 20 or 21. So it's a long period of time with a teacher. So I got to see how he lived, you know, outside of class. I drove him home after, you know, our day at the school, and I would pick him up. So there were a lot of things. He jokes around sometimes. He says, I think if anything that you learn anything from me is like what not to do, as much as, you know, what to do. So a lot of his mistakes I tried to avoid as much as possible at that time. He's a different person now. You know, when I met Sifu, he was like this young, cocky guy, very spunky, ready to go at any time, you know, but well respected. You know, people were scared of him because he had fast hands. I remember this Taekwondo guy who would come over and he would say, "Where's Terry?" I said, "Who's looking for him?" "Tell him Joe Barlow is coming here." "Oh, I heard about you." I said, "You got really fast kicks." He goes, "Yeah, I heard he's got fast hands." I said, "Oh, yeah. Well, tell him I want, you know, maybe we can trade." I said, "Okay." I said, "Hey, can I see one of your kicks?" He threw a kick. I didn't even know where from. It was right here on my head, you know, total, complete control. I said, "Wow, that is awesome." That's how I learn, you know. I said, well, you know, I just like demonstrate what you can do. It's like, and I see if I can steal from you. Anyway, a lot of things. I mean, focus, not quitting even when something's hard. Um, getting back up. uh, if you truly love something and you have a passion for it, to keep working on it. You know, there's the Japanese, you know, when they refer to Budo, they refer to it as character building, as opposed to just fighting. You know, so I learned that more and more with the Aikido. They're more philosophical than Kajukembo people. Not that Kajukembo people are not, but there's so many things I can't even begin to explain it all. You know,
Well,
when I'm scared.
I think I know from being in Japan. Oh yeah, for those of you who are listening, if this is your first episode, I'm in Japan.
COVID, right?
Yeah, I'm about an hour away from Kobe. I live in the middle of nowhere, in a place called Kasai-shi. It's like the Idaho of Japan. It's for those of anybody listening. Yeah, it'd be like saying the Idaho of Japan.
You get a hold of some Kobe beef.
I do get a hold of Kobe beef. It's close enough that I can get some Kobe beef every once in a while. Yeah, it's good stuff. But you were saying, like, yeah, I mean, again, like in Japanese Aikido, and also even the more traditional Japanese martial arts, if you go to like a Kyokushin place or even the Shaolin Kempo, there is a lot more focus on the philosophy as part of the curriculum. Like, yes, we have Kajukembo philosophy, but I've seen schools literally recite Buddhist prayers along with Buddhist precepts, like Zen philosophy quotes and stuff. Like they'll go into like the Japanese, the way they teach their martial arts, the traditionalists, not the non-traditionalists, which is I don't want to get into on this podcast, but they do go a lot more into philosophy and as part of their curriculum. Like they were spending 30 minutes reading different types of philosophies, and like they'd get tested on that for their belt ranks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I saw that one time, and that's kind of silly. It's just silly. If you want that, you go to church. What I think what I'm saying is, in terms of philosophy, is that you learn the philosophies that the martial arts has to teach you through the physical training and what you experience in class at that time. You know what I mean? Not spouting off some Confucius philosophical thing forever. You know what I mean? I watched a class one time where they did that for 20 minutes. It's like, you're wasting your time. Just go into the katas. Just do the exercises. You're wasting your time. How's that going to help you? It's not going to help you.
Yeah. I'm just trying to clarify. I have my opinions on it. I have my opinions on it, but I'm glad you cleared that up. Like, from when you're talking about the philosophies of martial arts that you were getting from Aikido, it wasn't that style of traditional philosophies.
No. You know, I mean, like, what was like one of the things that I've always remembered Bruce Lee was saying in that book. It was just like, I think it was him who said it. It's like, don't compare your line with somebody else's. Your line of development.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're here, you're there, and then you just keep. I'm misquoting it, but I can't think of anything right now profound to say for your audience. If I can learn something.
No, I think that's profound enough, to be honest. So
I remember my sensei one time, and I was being very cocky in class, and he was doing this punching exercise. Well, what's Aikido got to do with punching, you know? And so he was teaching this other student. I think he was a black belt in Aikido, and he was punching, and I'm like, what is that? I was being very cocky because I used to break boards and bricks, you know? I was like, you got to punch through it, you know what I'm saying? And then my sensei just looked at me and goes, you know, this is what I mean with the philosophical. This is Claro. Everyone is in a different level. Your level, his level is here. Yours is here. Mine is up here. You know? He's saying, I guess, and I got it, you know, it's just like, don't be so arrogant, because you still have more to learn. Even though he doesn't know what you know, you don't know what I know. And that's why you're here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Like everyone's there for their own journey. And then
Yeah.
the quote that I think looking at Bruce Lee quotes here online. Always be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself. Do not go and look for a successful personality and duplicate it.
uh,
Was one
yeah.
of the things that he said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When I teach my students, I say, I'm not teaching you my style. You know what I mean? I'll teach you the art. This is the foundation, and we'll do drills and whatever. And I'll give you my ideas on things. Eventually, if you ever reach that level, you will have your own martial arts, your own way of expressing what I have taught you and what you will learn from other people. You will find your own path, your own practice. That's how I teach. I don't go, oh yeah, here's Austria, Ryu, it's the best. It's
Yeah.
BS.
Yeah. And again, no,
I,
no,
I
no.
I learned from Sifu Al. I learned from Sifu Faircloth. I can move like them. My martial arts is not like theirs, and their martial arts is not like mine.
Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, I used to say that's a difference between Kajukembo and other styles, but I'm starting to find it in other styles as well. Like when they have a really, if you find an instructor who has a deep understanding of martial arts, it doesn't, style no longer really is
No,
a thing. Like I've talked to really high level BJJ instructors, and they say the same thing. Like every student has to find their own game. They call it they call it playing games, right? You're gonna play the X guard, you're gonna play the closed guard game, or you like to play the top guard game. But everybody has to find that for themselves. And just
right?
because I have something that I'm good at doesn't mean that I should be focusing on that thing that I'm good at with my students. I have to try to hone in what they're good at and develop their game around that, right? So
Yeah.
like that's found in that's what I feel is a universal amongst good teachers, right? So yeah. Going back into your story, you didn't go straight to an office. You didn't go straight to an office, Claudio. You went to Japan. What?
I worked in a lot of places. Actually, I've done everything: retail stores, restaurants. But when I was acting, I was heavily into acting even after school and college. And I made a joke. I went to Japan. The first time I went to Japan, it was a theater program. We were there for 2 weeks. We went to Toyama Prefecture in Togamura Mountain, and there's this acting technique called Suzuki Method. And so I was there. We did that for 2 intensive weeks. And it's very physical, very martial, a lot of marching, lifting your legs up, standing in one position, difficult positions for a long time. So it's very martial arts. And I was kind of used to it because of my Kajukembo training. So I thought, okay, this is kind of cool. I went there and but before that, I always had this weird, I was a weird kid as a teenager. I thought I was going to be a ninja. I was going to go to Japan, study ninjutsu, and marry a Japanese woman and have a family. That was my thing. I was watching a lot of ninja movies in the 1980s.
I think a
And
lot of us,
a lot
for
of
a lot
ninja,
of us coming from that generation, are thinking the same
right?
thing. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So that was my thing. I saw these mysterious pictures of Japan with the mist. I'm like going, oh my God, I want to learn the language. So, I even took up Japanese in college, which I wasn't very good at the time. And then, so when that was over and I graduated from college, I decided to go back. I was walking around in Kyoto at that time, and I said, you know what? It would be cool to live here and make some money and work here for a while, and maybe even find a martial arts teacher and see if I can, learn further, right? And it happened. I did, except I was in the middle of nowhere. I was in Toyama Prefecture, and but I got to meet my teacher, which was very fortunate to me at the time. It was like he was in the middle of nowhere, and that was cool. I mean, I could have gone on to learn Kyokushinkai. I think there was somebody at that in the neighborhood, but then I thought it's too close to Kajukembo. I kind of already know how to punch and kick. was just a matter of like, punching it out with somebody else or something like that. I really wanted to learn something new. And at the same time, I went to Japan because I wanted to do something with my theater degree. Before I started acting, I thought to myself, I might as well make some money, save it up before I go to Hollywood. That's what I did.
Wow. So, and that was the Aikido instructor you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sensei.
So it's interesting. Like, so you start in grappling, wrestling. You say, okay, I'm going to get really into Kajukembo, more self-defense oriented, more real fighting, as you said, for the street fight, for the bully. Was it bullying that was happening at school? Is that why you were getting into fights? Was there a lot of bullying or gangs, or what was?
Yeah, that was good. Not bullying.
A lot of bullying.
I did stand up against a gang once.
Okay.
Luckily, nothing happened. There was like 6 or 8 of them or something. It was at a store, and I was working at Safeway at the time. I had a broom, and I said, "Oh my God!" It was something out of a movie. I thought, I hope nobody like attacks, because I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm either gonna get beat up, or that was very weird. But a lot of I seem to like run into these things. I don't know how.
Yeah.
Even in New York City.
What a coincidence. So
it's good that I know martial arts.
Yeah. So you ended up in your journey, right? Grappling, Kajukembo, and then Aikido, back to grappling. now you're in tatewaza. Now you're in stand-up, right?
Sort of. So Aikido is very different in that sense. Aikido was not meant to be, from my understanding now, it's a little bit more advanced than when I first started. It was never meant to be a self-defense martial arts. It was meant, the exercises were meant to change your body. And if you look at the kata, they call it the Kihon Waza. It's a 2-man kata. It's not really like, I don't think after all these years, I think I can say this, it's not really like street sets in Kajukembo. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of compliance in the beginning, but you're learning to deal with force in a tangential way, right? So you don't have to like use muscular force or physical force. But there's more to that, That's one of the reasons why they look up to Ueshiba. It seems so mysterious. So if you don't understand Aiki, it is mysterious and it is very, very esoteric, but it isn't. It's scientific. A lot of teachers either don't know it and they try to teach it, or teach what they don't know, or they know it and they don't want you to know it. It's the same thing with Chinese grandmasters. If they don't want you to know it, it doesn't matter how long you're going to be with them. You can be with them until you're dead and give them thousands of dollars. You're not going to get shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can learn Tai Chi or Bagua or Xingyi all you want. They're not going to teach you the internal martial arts unless you are the chosen one.
Wow.
So finding the teacher who will teach it to you is rare.
So they're very protective. They're very protective of the art.
Yeah, well, also one thing I learned too, and it's actually supposedly written in a book, and I'm quoting Dan Harden, who teaches me internal martial arts. He's very good. He's well known, and he says it's because when you teach Westerners this stuff, they're bigger, so they have more mass to play with. So little Asian guys like us, we don't like that so much. They don't want you to know it because you're big.
That makes sense.
You got a better game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you did how long were you in Japan?
I was only there for 2 years.
For 2 years. Okay, so you're here for 2 years.
For 2 years.
And your instructor, at that point, you must have picked up enough Japanese, or unless your instructor spoke English, you picked up enough Japanese.
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. It cut out. The mic cut out. Can you say that one more time?
少しだけです。
少しだけ. All right. So, and your instructor spoke, did he speak any English? No English.
Oh, my teacher spoke English.
Oh, okay.
When he taught classes, most of the time it was in Japanese. It was very hard to understand and very hard to learn. But there were two other gaijins that were with us who would translate. So that was cool. It was a couple,
Oh, nice.
Rachel and Drew. So they helped out a little bit, but it
Okay.
was still very difficult. Very difficult because Sakamoto Sensei would say really weird stuff. You know, it's just like he even said it to the Japanese. He says, "All of you, you copy what I do from outside. You don't know what goes on inside." I'm not going. Give us a clue. The only thing at that time I thought he was talking about was like breathing. Must be breathing. That's all I know. Breathing. He's doing something with his breath. It's not. He was moving his soft tissues. He learned how to move his soft tissues. That's internal martial arts. If you don't understand that, you know what I mean? That's why it's called external martial arts, because you can see what I am doing physically. Outside, from the outside, you can copy it. But inside, if I'm pulling up and down from those soft tissues, right? You can't see that. You can only feel it. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. I was just this goes into like I wrote an article, a blog on the origins of Japanese jiu-jitsu and the relation between Aikido and Aiki jiu-jitsu and the evolution of how it later turned into judo, and then now you have BJJ. But it always comes back to scientific principles that are going on inside of your own body, structure, base, the alignment of your spine, right? And like, if you were to say that to someone who just started, they're going to be all these people. Yeah, you say that to a beginner that just started, right?
I'll learn how to fight, man.
Yeah, I'm here to fight. What are you talking about the alignment of my spine for? Like, I want to learn how to put someone in an arm bar. So like, you know, but like that's huge. That is the game. Like,
that's what makes masters.
Yeah, that is the game. Whenever you see two high level people go at it, or even when I'm rolling with black belts in BJJ, it's not about the last thing on my mind is submission. It's all about, okay, where's my spine? All right, how is my spine aligned to my neck? Okay, how right now he's putting pressure on me. How is my body reacting? Should I be relaxed right now, or should I be tense? And sometimes that's why, like, when you look at high level BJJ, it's not done in 3 minutes. It's always like 5 to 10 minute rolls, because really for the first 3-5 minutes, nothing is happening. Like, it's just two people. If it's not competitive, if it's not like in the tournament scene, it's just two people inside the dojo and no one can break them up. It's going to be two people that are essentially scared to do anything because they know that the next move that comes might lead to the end. So it's just really slow movements in holding one position and then transitioning to the next position very slowly, because you don't want to give up anything.
Yeah. They're strategizing.
Yeah, and that's all internal. That's all internal. What the outsider sees is two people stagnant.
Oh, he's waiting. He's waiting to do something.
Yeah.
No, I'm setting you up.
Yeah, there's a lot of small movements going on, like tiny movements, like slowly crawling the hand onto the key to try to get a better grip. There's all, and then slowly fighting off that hand. There's like all these little small things happening.
I think like in when you think about like the masters, the Chinese masters, for example, they talk about it, not so much in the external martial arts. They said touching hands, and you see like not pushing hands like you see in the park, but like pushing hands like the grandmasters. Like, why did they do that? They don't punch and kick. You don't see them punch and kick, because they're it's like a chess. They're like playing chess. You know what I mean? And if you get displaced, or the energy enters into you and you get displaced or thrown, you lost the game. You know what I mean? You don't have to spar it out and give each other a black eye. You know what I mean? The other person is a better game than you, you know, and it's happening inside. This is very fascinating. It's a gentleman way of competing or challenging one another, as opposed to like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just get out.
Going at it.
You know, break some bones. You know, so you know, when you're 50 or 60 or 70 or 80, you might want to think about practicing like that.
Yeah. Kickboxing, Muay Thai is fun, but yeah, after a while, like your body can't keep doing Muay Thai.
No, I used to condition my hands like Kajukembo, because this Kajukembo, and now, uh, I start to feel a little arthritis. Like
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't have done that when I was young.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've really, really enjoyed. Like I used to punch the bags with just my bare knuckles, and I used to punch hard the trees and that kind of stuff, right? To condition the knuckles, walls, boards. And as I got older, I started wrapping my hands more and more. Even when I go light, I always wrap my hands, and because I realized that same thing. On cold days, my left hand was getting kind of tight.
Tough, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Blood.
Yeah, it's getting tight. I'm like, oh no, and I'm not, and I'm not. I see what's coming. I'm 39, but I see what's coming. I see it happening. So yeah.
There's this martial artist that they videotaped him throughout the years, and he was into like what is that iron body?
The iron body training for
well known in Washington State, but like he got really old. I don't remember how old he was, but this was his movement at the end of his martial arts journey. That was his movement. Somebody would punch at him and he'd go. I was like, that's what you got to show for your martial arts journey? That's it? Do you know what I mean? I mean, I not to put him down. It was just kind of like I didn't want that for myself.
Yeah.
By having to learn iron body techniques or whatever, just to be able to move like that, because Kajukembo is supposed to, or martial arts is supposed to help you live longer. You know what I mean? With a better body. You know what I mean? Yeah. Feel good. And
what do they call that in psychology? They call it it's not about living. It's about the quality of life, right? Mm. It's not about how long you live. It's about the quality of life that you get out of those years. Because what good is it if you live to 90 or 100 if from like 60 onwards you can barely walk, right? Or you can't.
And it's going to happen anyway because age. It's going to happen anyway. I'm not as flexible as I used to be.
Yeah, it's coming, but you want
how much I stretch.
But if you keep smashing your hands and you can't hold a bottle of water, that's going to be a problem.
What's the whole point of studying martial arts or even doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that to me is very important. That even though martial arts is combat, right? It has to be combat. Otherwise, you can't call it martial arts. I look at the other aspect of it as like the Japanese term character building. You know what I mean? To develop oneself physically, mentally. Kajukembo people say spiritually. I don't know what that means exactly, but it could be will force. It could be, Yeah. It's supposed to help you with your life.
It's supposed to help you with life, and I think that's where the spirituality part, right? Because if we look at it, we always say that before class, right? Mind, body, spirit. Mind, body, spirit. And the way I've broken that down is the mind can intellectually break things down. And the body is what we put into our training and what we're conditioning. But I think the spirit is what kind of puts together what you're doing all this for. And whether you want to make it a higher power or you want to add other things to that, that's great. But I think the spirit is what's going to connect those other two, the mind and the body, what you're intellectualizing, what you're putting your body through, and kind of the purpose. What's the purpose, right? What's the overall purpose for all of this? I think is what I translate it as, and I know everyone does differently, but
I try to avoid that word spirit because it is a difficult concept.
It has a lot of connotations to it.
A lot of connotations.
Yeah.
So I like to when the whole idea of kata is to unify mind, body. I like to use the word mind, body, and breath to unify that and do it in one motion to create that technique or that force. That to me is the practice of kata.
And that goes together with what I keep mentioning psychology. I say this in the intro, that my background is in psychology.
It's very hard. It's one person like that martial arts teacher said it's very difficult to put words into martial arts, into what we do.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Sometimes I go, blah, 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 and then Dan would go, one of my teachers would go, Claro, use words, English.
But it's really hard because really what you're talking about when you mention what you just said right now, right? Breath, mind, and body. The psychological research that's coming out about mindfulness and what they're throwing around with is the idea of, again, using your breath and again, to calm your mind. Right, and once you can use your breath to calm your mind, that will calm your body. And this is being shown in science. Like once you can control your breath, you can control your intrusive thoughts and to focus more on what you're doing. And in turn, you'll have a physiological effect. It'll lower your heart rate. It'll bring better blood pressure. All kinds of great stuff. Yeah, and that's what we aim to do. Yeah. So look, so you were in Japan.
Back to Japan.
You decided, back to Japan. We're leaving Japan now for your journey because we're almost to the end of the show. So I'm trying to, I don't want to fast forward your life. I don't want to skip through any of the good parts, So
went by quickly.
So
I'm 50.
So you left Japan. You came back. You decided not to become a ninja and settle down, as we talked about.
I scrapped that idea. I said, I had enough of Japan. I'll go back. I'll visit. I love the place, but I won't work there and I won't live there.
So you came back to the U.S. What did you do? You obviously gained a new thing, and a lot of Kajukembo guys do this. They'll go study something else and they'll come back and keep doing Kaju. What did you do?
Okay. I was trekking to go to Los Angeles because in my mind, that was my dream. And my wife, actually, I married my wife. Japan was our honeymoon. She left me. She went to Seattle, lived with my parents. I had to get her back. So I was very sad leaving my sensei in Japan. And I wanted to continue to try to understand this thing called Aikido. So I studied with Bookman Sensei briefly in Seattle. He was the one teaching there, but not very seriously. But I went to some classes. I learned a lot of stuff. Like in Japan with my teacher, he didn't really teach me how to fall well. He just kept throwing me, and then I had to figure it out. And he was very good with weapons, but he wasn't very good at wanting to teach it to you. So I like Bookman Sensei for that. He helped me out, like learning how to fall properly. So I got better at doing my okemis, and I really wanted to study with him with his weapons, but it was I wasn't studying constantly, so I wasn't able to memorize the patterns. And so I worked some odd jobs and went back to acting. And where I met, it's another story altogether, where I met this Russian director, went back to my old acting teacher. And that was very nice until I decided to, and even toured and did shows in high schools all over Washington State. And then finally went to Los Angeles because that was my dream, to become an actor there. We were there for 4 years, and then I again went to look for, I wanted to continue my martial arts training. I went to look for another Aikido teacher, and that's where I found Matsuoka Sensei. And he helped me try to understand the movements more, broke it down for me. Because again, my teacher in Japan, he was very mysterious that way. He just kind of like, you had to try to steal it from him, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's how they all are. I had a kickboxing coach, and you'd think kickboxing would be different from the traditional stuff, but he also taught open glove karate, and he still taught kickboxing very similar. Like very slowly would show you something new. Mm-hmm. Very hesitant to show you anything. That's just how he was. I was there for 2 years, and
that's how Japanese people teach, This is like they'll do the technique in Aikido, especially 1 or 2 times, and you go, oh, dozo. And you're like going, ah. How do you do that? And so the people who end up teaching are the seniors. So who are you really learning from? you
Yeah.
know but I got close to those two teachers, so I did learn a lot more. I got some hands-on instructions. Uh, I don't know. I learned a lot from Matsuoka Sensei before I left him too, and then I was kind of sad after leaving him and moving on to a different teacher. um, but finally, what moving forward, I quit Aikido when I met a man named Dan Harden. First, I met Ushiro Sensei, who's a well-known Okinawan karate master. I was very interested in him for a while because supposedly he had this internal martial arts thing, but it wasn't until I met Dan Harden who was able to like really explain what was going on. And there was I couldn't do nothing to Dan, nothing. I tried everything. The only thing I could do was run away. I tried angling off, he hit me. Tried else, it's like, how come you're always ahead? Whatever I do, you're always ahead. He goes, yeah. How are you doing it? So I had to steal from him for quite a number of years. And through him, I understood what Aikido was really trying to teach, what I wasn't taught. And now he's helping me out. He's coaching me. He's tutoring me. I go to his seminars or I visit him at his home. And I can develop my martial arts further that way without having to go to other dojos like I used to. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
that makes
I
sense.
develop my Kajukembo that way too. You know what I mean? I don't have to give up anything because Dan hits as much as he does throws. You know what I mean? He can roll it with you. He likes to talk about MMA and BJJ. He goes, I had to put the gloves down because I was putting people in the hospitals. So, I was like, not only that, not only that's not why I'm interested in him. It's fascinating when he talks about martial arts and how, what he's doing with his body and how he's able to mess you up no matter, what you do. Isn't that what we want to do? Be invincible?
Yeah. And he's coming from a competitor. He competed because you're saying he had to put the gloves down. So he must have been competing.
Not. I don't think in a sense that maybe you do that. He went in the ring, but he sparred with the guys who did it.
Oh, okay, all right. So he actually sparred though. Like again, there's some people that's
blood.
Right. That's one of the things that's one of the criticisms a lot of people have of some softer styles is that they don't spar. Right. They don't actually practice, and then and it's funny. Like I was just talking.
There's a difference between Tai Chi in the park and Tai Chi Chuan.
Yeah.
Tai Chi in the park is for health. Tai Chi Chuan was the real thing.
Yeah. And then
fist way.
And then the problem, as you've seen, is when you have a style that allows someone to progress in the ranks that's never sparred, or it's never competed or anything, you end up with people that
is what you guys call it.
What's that?
The stress test.
The stress test, yeah, the stress test. That never been, yeah, they haven't stress tested it. They haven't pressure tested anything.
Pressure tested.
Yeah, pressure test. If you end up with someone who got through the ranks, who never pressure tested anything, you might end up with those guys that you see on YouTube every once in a while, like waving their hands, and I don't know why their students follow. Like I really like if you're watching this.
I was into it for a while. And it's an interesting thing because I had to self-reflect and go, what the hell's going on here? Why do I even believe this shit? It's perpetuated and it's not true. It's not real. Even when you see Ueshiba doing in demonstrations, they are responding to what he is about to do because they don't want to feel his technique. But people are misinterpreting it and saying, ooh, it's the no touch throw.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. Not touch throw. You're gonna get hurt.
And again, it doesn't help that you have straight out imposters like the guy in England that was like,
no,
that hurt.
Martial arts has nothing to do with that.
Exactly.
That's like movies and fantasies and comic books.
Magic, like I think that's the problem. Like what people don't understand is that there is people who have actually pressure tested their stuff and they practice a certain way. And then there's also people who are straight out con artists. So like, and that's really hurt the reputation for the people that are actually, they've actually done it. They've actually pressure tested it. They've actually gone in there, like you said, the guy that you worked with has worked with fighters and has actually sparred. He's actually had contact, right? And
I went, especially when I was drunk, because that's the like, all right, He says, Claro, you better stop. You're bleeding. What? You know what I mean? It's just like I had to know. I had to know if he was full of it or if he had anything.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to learn from him, you know what I mean? I need to know the truth. I'm tired of people lying to me.
Yeah, and that happens a lot, right? Like in what we do when you go somewhere, you meet people who hold titles or whatever, and and like you said, you might end up in a situation where someone's lying to you, and it sucks to be the only person in the room that knows that this person is full of it. And especially like if you were really looking forward to training at that place for whatever reason, and then you have to like honestly reflect on like, man, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And
that happens, especially when you do it for like 2 or 4 years or 7 years. You've been wasting my time.
Yeah.
But then, that's the journey.
Yeah.
I would not have met Dan if I had not taken up Aikido, because it was that topic, the whole idea of this other, right? This other, what is the other? It was not like what I was learning from my Sifu, punching, kicking, knees and elbows and doing tricks. They knew things. I wanted to know what that was. Why are people falling? Are they just faking the falls, or is it real? There's something else going on. I needed to know firsthand. That's how I learn. Kind of hard-headed that way.
That's the best way, though. that's the best way. Right? There's no bullshit. There's no bullshitting firsthand. So like,
it's like getting hit with, somebody's got gloves. You hit as hard as you can. You go, oh, that's what a punch feels like. You don't have to, fantasize about it. You don't have to create all kinds of weird stuff in your head about how it's going to go down. I have friends who do that, in martial arts, and I go, are you sure?
Yeah.
Even knife techniques, they're very dangerous. It was, I think I saw something on YouTube. It was a French guy. He goes, okay. He went up to these Filipino martial arts. He goes, okay, we're at this distance. Okay. You can do whatever you want. Okay. I'm going to cut you right here. I'm going to cut you right here. Not a real knife, right? I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to go like this. Because you ready? Ready? When are you ready? Okay. He went, and then the guy, every time, it's like, cut. It's like, that's real knife. Yeah. That's it. It's not like guys coming at you at this speed. It's like, that's real life.
No,
that's the real thing. And what is he teaching you? Distance. Be aware before it even happens. You know what I mean? And I can go on with like the proper way there's no blocking.
Yeah. No, like,
real thing.
Yeah. And that I think that's what people, I think that's the biggest beef I have with a lot of combative stuff that I see online. That's why I don't like to spend too much time. Like, I do combatives, but I don't like it because of that. Because of that one, what you just mentioned is the idea that once someone has a knife, yeah, you practice distance. But once someone has a knife,
it's dangerous.
It's dangerous, and the training is not really about techniques. It's about principles. I think that's the biggest thing that people fail to
attitude. What people would say.
Yeah,
your mental attitude. It's like what happens at that time.
Yeah, because it's not. You're not. It's not techniques. It's not. You're not going to remember anything. Like that's the thing. And if you the time you spend. Yeah, that's time wasted. If you are thinking of techniques during combatives, that is time wasted. Yeah.
Well, I think it was him who said it. It was just like if I or maybe Sifu Clark said it. If a fight lasts more than a minute, then you're either losing or you're going to be there for the long haul. You know what I mean? Especially with multiple attackers, you can't. It's not a sparring bout.
Yeah, it's not a sparring match. It's not.
You got to take them out with one blow. Yeah,
and it's funny. Like there was I'm gonna Stephen Kesting interviewed a former MMA champion. I'm skipping on his name, but because I mentioned earlier, I got hit in the head too many times and I'm bad at names. So, so we got that out of the way. But he was mentioning about how he got into a fight in Russia. He was Russian, and he got in a fight with some shady Russian mobster characters. And he said it's no longer, even though he does quote unquote MMA, he said it's no longer the way things work in MMA. You don't have time for that. So it's you can't be submitting anyone. So
No, there's no such thing as submission.
There's no such thing as submission anymore.
What's the matter with you?
No, yeah, it's no such thing as submission anymore. It's you take them down, you break their arm, you get the next guy, you break his neck. Like you're doing your head cranks. You're not gonna wait for a tap. You're just gonna maim and hurt. It's a total different mentality. And I think you touched on a really good point about
that's what Kajukembo is really great. What's your first primary target? Eyes, throat. You know what I mean? Nose, solar plexus, and groin, knees. It's a big thing. It's a big deal. You know what I mean? We don't just say it because we like to say it. It's like, it's really what you want to do in a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really the first targets you want to hit.
Yeah. Maximum amount of damage in the short amount of time possible.
Yeah.
So we're getting towards the end here. And obviously, like you mentioned earlier, you've continued your Aikido training, but you also been doing the Kajukembo. It sounds like the Kajukembo's been there the whole time. Is that?
I practiced when I was training Aikido. I always practiced on my own solo with Kajukembo. I kept it up. The Kajukembo that I do sometimes, some people, I know one guy, he had mistaken it. It's like, oh, you do Jeet-Kune-Do. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. I do Jeet-Kune-Do. Because it's like how Sifu All teaches. You know what I mean? And no fix. It's not fixed. Kind of thing. I was taught boxing drills and things like that. So I kept those things, those skill sets, kept them with me. I kept practicing them. And then when I came back, my student in Seattle, I would work out with him sometimes and we'd compare techniques. And sometimes I'd show him some Aikido stuff and he would say, Sifu, that doesn't work. What are you doing? I was like, come here. So I had to prove to him. And of course he was right because he was a bouncer and he would do things that he would deal with that you would never do, like in the katas that we do in Aikido, for example. People just don't come at you with a knife hand. You know what I mean? It's retarded. People don't go at you like this. They don't even swing with a straight punch in the street. It's just like that, right? So those are the great lessons in Kajukembo that I wouldn't want to neglect or forget, right? Because they're important and they still happen and you still need them. I see altercations in New York City all the time, and it's how I was taught. You know what I mean? I see it as like, oh yeah, it's true, it's real. So I kept it up. But I didn't go back into it again until I met Dan Harden. I said to myself, well, shit, he knows internal martial arts and he punches and kicks and it hurts. So I better go back to punching and hitting. That's what I told myself. And so I started teaching again when Sifu Faircloth hooked up with me again. And that's what I started to do. I started to focus on taking everything that I had learned and trying to make it concrete for myself as well as for my students, creating my own martial arts. I was always doing that, but even more now. I had to put the striking arts to the side when I was learning Aikido because I didn't want to hit people in class. I didn't want that part of myself to come out when I got angry or upset or couldn't do the technique. I wanted to learn what they had to offer, and I wanted to try to master what they were doing to do it better than they were doing it. And then after I did that, I can say, okay, no, this is how I really feel. This is what's going to come out. Because I always worried about that when I was in Los Angeles. I said, okay, I'm about to stop a fight. What am I going to use? Aikido or my Kajukembo. Kajukembo. Two guys coming at me. One guy's whipping a belt. You know what I mean? So, I'm gonna go in for the hits. I'm not gonna try to put a nice kotegaishi, nice. No, man. It's gonna, the next blow is going to hurt if I don't put one guy down or something like that. That's how I was thinking, And I kept questioning myself over the years, because I was still doing Aikido. I was like, does this really work? Interesting enough, every time I visit my old senseis, they always go, Claro, we have to go back to Daitoryu. What are you talking about? And I didn't know what Daitoryu was at that time. I know, Claro, sometimes I wonder why Aikido doesn't work. Now you tell me. This is a high level sensei saying to me, in Aikido, Claro, sometimes Aikido doesn't work. Yeah. Because they don't really test it, right? I mean, they can.
And again, there's only so it doesn't. And no offense to anybody who does Aikido, and no offense to any stylists, because if you're a Kajukembo guy listening to this, you know what we're talking about. When we say Kajukembo, we're talking about what we're really talking about is use whatever works. For anyone listening to this that doesn't know what Kajukembo is, and you've gotten this far into the podcast, when we say losing your Kajukembo, we're just saying use whatever works. However, don't focus too much on how you're gonna do the next move.
It's
just move.
It's bujutsu. It's real combat. I'm coming home with a bottle of wine and I get attacked by 3 people, or even like in New York, right? Some rider got stabbed in the neck. He didn't do anything. It's not like he was looking for it, right? Use the damn bottle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's time to go.
Or it's time to go. You know what I mean? It is like Dan said one time that somebody was criticizing martial arts that he was doing. It's an old martial arts. It's what the samurais were learning. I can't think. Katora Shinto, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the guy says, "Oh, that's fake." So what? It's like, and then because they would do a lot of katas, right? So one of the practitioners says, "Come over here." He's like tying his shoes, right? Takes off his shoelaces and puts it around the guy's neck like a garrote. And the guy was choking. What doesn't work? What exactly doesn't work? Do you know what I mean? Combat's different. He said it too. It's very different from nothing against sports combat. I love watching it. I still do. But it's very different. It's about survival. Sifu Farkov teaches that, right? Survival.
Yeah, it's a different mindset.
Hope to God that if you use it, there are no witnesses, and the cameras are not on. But it's the stuff that you have to think about if you're talking about. At least I used to when I was younger. When you're talking about martial arts, and it's no joke. Home invasion is no joke.
Yeah,
it's no joke. That you put weapons around your home that you can have access to, because you never know. That's Kajukembo. That's how I learned my martial arts.
Yeah. And that's good. I'm glad you clarified that, because some people, anybody who does any martial artist listening to this, they know what Kajukembo is, but sometimes you might have your average person listen to this and they might get lost. Because I had someone online told me a long time ago, they're like, I fought a Kajukembo guy and his grappling wasn't that good, so I guess you guys don't cover a lot of grappling, huh? And I'm like, the person you fought must have not practiced a lot of grappling. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Whatever you do, don't make a broad statement, because every Kajukembo practitioner is gonna be different, and that's one of the things.
It's very different. I met. I don't know if you've had Sifu Ted Sotelo.
I haven't met him.
Yeah,
no.
He was under Sifu Aldo Cascos, and when I met Sifu Ted Sotelo, man, oh my God. He was a little overweight, and people thought, oh my God, this guy can't move. First he started out with one guy and then eventually made it to me. He was so fast. He was hitting hard. He was like chopping, and he was doing these boxing moves, Filipino martial arts. And then on top of that, he says, I also know ground game. So I was like, oh, yes, Sifu. Yes, Sifu. He said, that's not how you do that technique. This is how we do it. I said, oh, yes, Sifu. You know what I mean? It's like everybody is different in Kajukembo. You can't put anybody in a box.
Yeah.
I saw Sifu Eric Lee cover 20 feet in no time with a sidekick. You don't know. What's great about Kajukembo is like, you can't just do whatever like MMA and call it Kajukembo, because it's not. At the same time, Kajukembo people can take anything from anybody and make it theirs. You know what I mean? I know it sounds like Jeet Kune Do, but Jeet Kune Do really isn't first. It's like,
yeah.
not that's to discredit, because he was my hero when I was younger. But it's, you know, it's similar in a sense. You know what I mean? That you take. I mean, it's not just Jeet Kune Do and Kajukembo that has had it. Many different martial artists have had it. Dan, he doesn't call his. You know, he's very. He's good. He makes his own swords.
And then arguably, if you read old martial arts, if you read the Book of Five Rings, Miyamoto Musashi talks about the same thing. Talks about the same thing. There's these universal narratives that have gone throughout history. And we're going to do the end of our podcast. But one thing I want to mention is that Miyamoto Musashi talked about how in his time, the warring period of Japan stopped. So you had a lot of samurais walking around with swords that had never fought in a war. You had a lot of samurais teaching Bushido that had never practiced. That he said, I don't remember seeing that guy when I was fighting, when I was in the last battle, when I was defending that place. I don't remember seeing that person. He saw people saying that they fought in battles that they never fought in. So like, and he was concerned at that time that the true way of the warrior was going to be lost, which has inspired him to write the Book of Five Rings. And if you read the Book of Five Rings, it's not a bunch of stuff about slicing horizontally or holding two swords, which he was known for. It was just a lot of stuff about philosophical awareness, how to strategically destroy an opponent. A lot of philosophies on being open to use anything. Again, you'll find these narratives. And he didn't call it a style. Like he talked about not conforming to a style. A lot of the stuff we talked about in Kajukembo. And you'll find these things throughout history, which is really cool. Like when you find there's the truth and then there's bullshit.
The lie.
Right.
A lot of lying.
Yeah, you can't.
In Kajukembo, there's a lot of lying. Well, what you just said, Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, they're all the same. Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, Aiki no Jiu-Jitsu, Aikido, the way of Aiki. You know, Aiki with Jiu-Jitsu. What the hell is Aiki? Even people who practice it can't even explain it because they don't know. They say, oh, when you do this, that's Aiki. Ah, okay. It's much more profound than that because they weren't teaching you techniques. They were teaching you the Aiki way. What is the Aiki way? If you understand the Aiki way, right, then you can create any technique from the Aiki way. It's not Shihonagi, Kotegaishi, Iriminagi. Try doing that in the street. You won't remember any of it. You know, this isn't Kajukembo. I told my black belt a long time ago, look, I taught you like, I don't know, 20, 100 techniques. You're going to remember 2 when you get into a fight.
Yeah.
1 or 2 if you're lucky. And you're going to keep using it. You go, Sifu, I got into a fight. Yeah. I remembered 1 or 2 techniques and I only did that. That's what I said. You know, yeah. That's what my Sifu said to me. And I said it to you. Now you know the truth. But it doesn't mean that we can't continue to grow, continue to learn other techniques and continue to, you know what I mean, refine what we know so other things can come out when we need them. That makes sense?
Yeah. And you never know what's going to come out.
If you don't know, if the guy lifts you, you know what I mean, a double leg takedown, what are you going to do? Now you're on the ground, right? Get up as fast as you can, pick up that rock. You know what I mean? You got some ground game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, you don't. it's not a A
You know,
B C one
it
two three
happens.
formula, right? It's not an ABC 1 2 3 formula. Well,
It's
Claro.
not. You can give that formula to a student. Anyway, another time.
Oh yeah, no, oh yeah, no, no, yeah. I'm realizing that we're moving away from your martial arts journey and we're heading straight into a black belt meeting, which is why I'm gonna say before we wrap up today, I am gonna have Claudio come back for a black belt meeting where we're gonna talk about more philosophies of martial arts and applications. And I think it would be awesome to have, since you mentioned Jeet Kune Do so much, I want to get my other friend who's a Jeet Kune Do practitioner. Maybe we can do I do these meetings with like 3 or 4 martial artists sometimes. So maybe I can bring him in and we can talk about that, about similarities and differences. I have one Kajukembo guy who works with JKD guys, and I have one strictly JKD FMA guy who I think would be fun to do a black belt meeting with.
You could also invite Robert Thornton, I think is his last name. Robert Thornton, he's one of Sifu Faircloth's black belts. We studied together a long time ago, and he's done it all. He's been doing it for years, and I think he holds a very high rank in Jeet Kune Do. And he studied Filipino martial arts. Is a very famous teacher. Anyway, you should get him in it too. It'll be very, very.
Yeah, when we're
very good.
I'll get the info. I'll get the info from you, and I'll contact him.
Yeah, Robin.
So before we wrap up, anybody who's been listening to this for this period of time who is not a martial artist, great. Thank you for listening this long. Hearing us ramble about something you have no idea what we're talking about. but what kind of advice would you have for someone who's looking to start their martial arts training, and they don't know where to start? What's some advice you have for that person?
That's tough. I would just say, just start. Just start. Do some research so that you don't end up at a McDojo. But it's hard to know what is going to appeal to you or what's going to make you tick. You know what I mean? And even if you start it, there's nothing wrong with quitting. If people quit on me with that school or that teacher, as long as you continue the journey, the martial art journey, because that's what it is. You know what I mean? You need to find your own journey, your own path. That's what I've always done for myself. You know what I mean? If I'm interested in something, I do research on it. I seek it out. I train with that teacher or that school. And if there's nothing more to learn, or I feel like there's nothing more to learn, or I've gone to a different level, I need to seek out somebody who has more, or who is more developed, or is a master, then I would do that.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. Thank you very much, Claudio, for coming out, sharing your journey with us. And for my listeners, stay tuned for the wrap-up.
Thank you.
That's a wrap. If you want to support the show, hit subscribe on YouTube. It's that simple. Really helps me grow. Also, this show grows organically by you sharing it with your friends. So if you got through all of this and you actually enjoyed what you heard, because you're a martial artist, please share it with your friends. Share it with your martial arts friends. That's how you can help this show grow. That's how you can help me, and by supporting the podcast. Really appreciate it. Have a great week. Catch you all next time. Peace.